Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council presents Epic Voyages. Come join us as we enter and experience the great mysteries of the world with tonight's host, Chase Kloetzke.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Epic Voyages. My name is Chase Kloetzke, and I am the guest host tonight. I am the Director of Investigations for Epic. Epic stands for Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigations Council, and tonight we are thrilled to bring you these great guests that we have with us. They are the Calamias, or JR and Diana is how we'll refer to them. They're awesome, but they're such a team that they're kind of known every once in a while as the Calamias. But they are respected and well-known Reiki masters and ordained licensed ministers. They team their gifts to solve complicated and sometimes even forgotten mysteries. Diana is a gifted psychic, and JR, the experienced law enforcement officer. They combine their talents to solve the UFO and paranormal cases brought to them by individuals and even by cold case professionals. They are dynamic, they're engaging, they're donating a wealth of knowledge, and even solving whodunits. As members of EPIC, Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigation Council, I just wanted to say that one more time, they contribute their expertise, time, and most certainly the team camaraderie of professionals working together to solve the UFO and paranormal mysteries reported to us en masse. They're no strangers to TV, film, or radio, and I'm thrilled to have them both with us tonight. Welcome, JR and Diana. How are you?
Hi there. How are you? We're fine.
It's great to be here with you tonight, Chase.
I was so happy that you guys accepted our invitation. I listened to the show because you guys were guest hosts a couple weeks ago on Inception Radio Network, and we just loved it. You guys had a great show. So it's kind of fun to be on the other end, yes?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot easier that way.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
I agree. I've been on both sides of the mic, too. It's definitely easier on the other side, but we're just thrilled to have you. You guys are really fast becoming known as the Dream Team. Everybody loves the combination. You kind of have, JR as, the very experienced investigator, with all that kind of technical, forensic, almost criminal crime scene type skills. And then Diana, you're such a
I'm way out there.
Yeah, you bring such a gift and a spirituality to this team that is so prevalent these days with all these reports. I don't think it goes unnoticed that paranormal activity, UFO reports, everything is up. Blame it on the internet and access to, solid professional organizations and investigators, or just stuff is happening.
I would agree with both of those counts, actually. I think it's things are really happening, and the abilities that we have to really look at it quickly, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, if you were trying to do this back when Roswell happened, we didn't have the computer technology, the web, any of that back then. Can you imagine if we did back then, how much easier the information would have been easier to disseminate? And
we would have gotten in trouble a lot sooner, that's for sure.
Absolutely, JR, absolutely. Probably the things I like is that you're just not, honed in on certain things. Diana, you develop or contribute your psychic abilities to not just what I would call the typical avenue, that you're actually out there solving cases and bringing your talents into like a UFO environment as well. And is that true?
Yes, ma'am, it is. I enjoy that. It's something a little bit different. Not too many of us get to do that. JR kind of threw me into it actually with his desires and his form of investigation. And it was something that back in the past, long before him, I would never have thought about doing. But he challenged me, and I guess I stepped up to the challenge, and it's something I really enjoy.
Boy, did she. She married me.
I was going to ask, how did you guys meet?
Well,
it's a cliche. We met in church.
We met, and it really happened. We met in church. I think there's a song by the Box Top, something about I met her in church, right? That's an old one. But
yeah.
we both belonged to we were ministers in a spiritualist church called the Open Door Truth Center here in El Paso, and I was going there. Actually, I started going there when I was 15. It was under a different person at the time, but eventually my mother took it over. She is a card reader, and she was an ordained minister, and we used to give messages there and read cards and things of that nature, which was part of the religion, if you will.
It was an old time spiritualist type church.
And Diane started going there, and that's where I met her.
Very nice. When you guys started realizing that your combined skills, talents, gifts, all those things could come together, and JR, you have an interest in the occult and even UFOs from very early on, correct?
Yes, that's true. I do.
And as an investigator, how did you guys kind of hone in and know that you could work these together and solve like very complicated or big cases?
Well, sometimes I think you give us too many kudos. Well, Diane is extremely psychic, really is psychic, and we started working together. I'm a little psychic, and work along with her sometimes. And between the occult, between all of those interests, I was also previously a investigator for MUFON many years ago, and I took Diane with me to interview an individual by the name of Lonnie Zamora. I'm sure a lot of you people out there who are interested in UFOs will know the name.
Yes.
And Lonnie worked for my cousin who lived in Socorro, New Mexico, and that's why I was so lucky. I was lucky enough to get to interview him 32 years after the fact. However, at the time that it happened, I was a teenager, just prior before I went to the Navy, I believe. And I actually got to visit the site. My cousin took me out there, and you could still see the scorch marks and the burned cactus and things of that nature, and even some of the yellow tape that had been placed around there by various agencies such as the Air Force Intelligence, Project Blue Book, CIA, and so on and so forth. So I was kind of drawn into that case and wanted to pursue it ever since I was a kid, and finally got to interview Mr. Zamora with Diane's help.
It was kind of interesting, as you can tell with JR. He is definitely the investigator. He's no nonsense. He goes in for the kill. And I guess
wait. Don't say it like
I tend to be a little bit softer and stuff. And Lonnie had a little bit of he wasn't too open to interviews, and he only agreed to that interview because, like JR was talking about earlier, because of his cousin. And he was a bit awkward. He wasn't sure if he wanted to do the interview. And we just started talking. I started talking to him about a little bit more personally, a little bit more calmly, if you will, about different things. And that's what then Robert was able to ask his questions. And he was much more open to that question at that time, because it had been quite some time since he allowed anyone to interview him.
Hey, I think he just liked flirting with you, but it's okay because we got the information.
It's a little bit more than that. It was an approach in a different manner. It wasn't a no nonsense approach. It wasn't, these are the questions, we need the answers.
Just the facts, man.
Just the facts, exactly.
Diana, you were born with the gift, but you studied in England from Right. How did that work?
You know what? It was really funny. I do believe I was born with a gift, and I think it comes down through the different families from both sides of my family, actually, from talking to some of my family members. But I came from a very strong Catholic family. And whenever I would say anything when I was little, I was always, Shh, you're not supposed to do that. And it was pretty much stifled. And I had the good fortune at that time to be married to a man in the Air Force who got stationed in England. And I got to go to England, and I got to meet a lot of interesting people from all walks of life, everywhere from members of covens to other paranormal type hypnosis, you name it. I met a lot of people there. And at that time, it was really starting to revive in England. And they took me under their wing. They let me know I was okay and that it was all right to see and feel and do these things. And it was kind of like an immersion type program. And it was awesome. It was really great. I was able to really hone my skills at that time. I was able to accept them and start working with them a little bit better. And I really believe that Spirit put me there for that purpose, so that I guess this was their purpose for me as I got older.
Right. Have the abilities improved your life, do you think?
I think it's a two-edged sword, Chase, to be honest with you. It's a two-edged sword. There are those moments that I feel it has improved, especially when I feel I've really helped someone. And I know then that it is a gift and that I'm blessed to have it to help someone with whatever it is that they need. But then on the other side, it's that other side of the sword when sometimes I don't get the answers. They won't let me know. And it's what that person has to experience. Even when it's myself, there have been times I've gotten angry. That why didn't you let me know this was going to happen? So and it's because you're not supposed to know, because you're not supposed to interfere. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, it does. When in public, what is it like? I mean, just at the mall and to be psychic, do things happen there or?
You know what? I have to be honest with you. I'm not one of those people who like to be on all the time. And I was trained, I had the ability to be trained to turn it off for the most part.
Okay.
And so I'm not always on, and that's a big misconception. I do try to stay pretty much out of the limelight for the most part. Believe it or not, I really do. But there are those moments in time when I'll be somewhere and I'll shake someone's hand or I'll start talking to them and I get messages. But I'm not one of those people that just start telling people whatever it is I'm picking up. I believe that that's interfering in their life. And unless they ask me something and then I get it, then I give it to them. But I find that just interfering. It's messing with someone's karma unless Spirit really tells me this person needs to know that. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's something I always wondered. And I did presume that if you were going to continue to develop this gift, there had to be a shut-off button, or it would just be too much, I think, for a human brain.
I think I would go crazy. I've heard of other people that do this work, and that's true. But I've heard some of them where they say, well, they can't turn it off, and I can't even drive because I can't turn it off. And I don't believe that's proper use of the gift because you're still here in a human body.
Right.
And as a human body, you're supposed to experience those human things, like them or not. And you need to be able to turn it off because you need to be able to function. And that's my belief personally, and that's how I rock, if you will.
JR, I promise we'll get you here in a minute, but
you go right ahead.
Okay, Diana, honestly, do you ever and I'm not psychic, so pardon me the lack of
No, that's
words for some of this, but do you ever feel things or vibrations or whatever the senses are that come to you from non-human life, like trees or animals, flowers? You know, I'm one that I honestly believe I love trees, and Rockstar and I were talking about this last night a little bit. They're breathing, living things on this earth. So I kind of thought about that today, and the question I thought I'd ask you.
Yes, most definitely I do. I do believe that everything has its energy. I do believe I have had those instances where I have connected. Actually, one of my biggest really instance of that, believe it or not, was at Stonehenge. And the rocks talked to me. And I know that sounds strange, and my psychiatrist, if I had one, would probably say, let's talk about this, Diana. But they talked to me. They told me different things, and I was able to verify it to a point. And yes, I mean, and in my psychic abilities, if you will, some of the animals come to me from the spirit world. And if I may be doing a reading for somebody, and all of a sudden their pet dog, their pet cat, all kinds of different things will come to me, and I'll tell them, I'll explain it to them. I'm seeing this animal with you, and they're like, "Oh my God, yes!" And sometimes I really feel a closeness when I'm working in the garden, and I do feel them talk to me, and it's an awesome connection. I am very blessed that Spirit allows me to use all of my 5 senses with my 6th sense. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'll be honest with you. I think that's probably, for me personally, the most enviable part of your gift is to have that absolute awareness. I mean, I think most people agree that, you know, they're living energies, but to have that sense of how real and connected we are, I love that. I think it's awesome. JR, you have had 3 close encounters in your life. Were you young when you had them, or were they more childhood or adult, or?
I had 3. The first 2 were in my childhood, and the last one was when I was an adult. I just wanted to touch one thing about your conversation with Diane before I mention anything on the UFO. You were talking about how much you like trees and believe that perhaps they have a spiritual quality or being about themselves. And I totally agree with you, Chase. I'm a member of the Universal Pantheist Society, and my son is a big hunter, and I go with him. I'm not so much the hunter, but I love to go out with him because, to be quite truthful, when I'm out there, that's my church. The trees, there's just a whole aura about it that sometimes, I know it sounds strange, but you can actually feel the trees, not necessarily talking, but there's an interconnection there, most definitely. And that's one of the things.
I know that feeling with the trees. I know everybody's going to be like, oh, what happened to my nuts and bolts, Chase? But no, that's exactly the connection is, you know, just in the woods, in the quiet.
Right.
And I know that's where I belong. I absolutely know it.
That's one of the sad parts about, we live in an arid region, El Paso, Texas, and there's very few trees like that. So when we're able to get up in the mountains of New Mexico, Colorado, or, you know, East or South Texas, it just, I can't describe it. And especially, I personally feel the same way, and even more so connected to the ocean and the water. But a stream, fishing stream, things like that, it just really enhances, I guess, the spiritual quality of everything. And I think everybody should at least try to hone in on such things. It makes you more appreciative of things in your life. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to carry away from the UFO.
No, that's and that's what we need to talk about, are some of the important things that surround us in our field, and even bringing that into like a close encounter experience or UFO extraterrestrial. They like our trees too. I'm convinced. You know, they're not landing in New York City, are they? I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's why they keep taking pieces back with them.
Absolutely. And, you know, they're decorating our crop fields. And no, they love the nature on this planet. Absolutely.
You know, in reference to I'll be quick if you want. In reference to the UFO sighting, my first one was in about, I want to say 1956 or so, 57. I think I was about 9 or 10 years old here in El Paso. Matter of fact, all 3 sightings were here. The first one was cigar-shaped, and it had portals on the side and an inlaid cockpit or canopy. It made no sound, and it flew over a telephone pole. It was bizarre. The second one was a disc-shaped object. I think I was about 13 at the time. About the size of a small car, gray in color. I heard it first. It made the classical UFO high humming sound, strict right out of one of the horror movies. And initially I ran, then I stopped and I ran back to look up. And this thing was coming down at about a 45-degree angle. All I could see was the bottom. The hair on my neck stood up, and I was frozen. I could not move. And finally, I was able to break away and run. And then my last encounter was in 1976. I was working as a clerk. I want to clarify this. As a clerk, clerical employee, the FBI here in El Paso.
I'm sorry, I did kind of drop that like I should have yelled incoming first because it was a bomb.
I was going home. I worked until I think at 10 o'clock that night. I was going home, driving home. We lived in an apartment complex. And as I came up over the hill to turn right at an intersection, I saw a very bright light coming from the west going east. And we lived right up at the foot of the mountains, the Franklin Mountains. As I turned right, the trajectory of this bright light and myself intersected. And I've been to Vietnam. I know what helicopters are, so I rolled down the window and I looked up as this thing was pacing me. And I was only doing about 3 miles an hour at the time. Again, it was about, as high as a telephone pole. It was a disc-shaped object. It was very bright. I could not see the skin of the ship. But on the top, it was red, white, and blue lights going clockwise. And on the bottom, it was a mirror version of the same lights, only they were going counterclockwise. No noise whatsoever. This craft came over my hood of my car and went over a small bump in the desert area. And then I couldn't see it, but I could see that the entire floor of the desert was illuminated because this craft had apparently landed. So I got out of the car and I started to walk over to see it, and I just simply couldn't bring myself to go over that hill. I was too scared, and I kept thinking, I'm married. I have 2 small children at the time. What happens if I never come back? And I got in the car. I drove down to the back parking lot, parked, and then I drove back to then I walked back to the site. But it had already gone, and it was one of those things where you already know it's gone before you get there, and that was a frightening experience for me. It really was. It was a approach conflict, approach avoidance conflict, and I simply couldn't master it. And sometimes I'm sorry I didn't.
Well, I don't know. I think as somebody with military experience. Being in the Navy, a tour in Vietnam. I mean, I have children in the military. The first thing I noticed was how quickly you hone into an environment. And I know that, you know what's going on around you with the simplest of things, like a rock was on the stone wall yesterday and on the other side of the road tomorrow,
Right.
And exactly. And there must have been something that it was actually a very smart decision not to go over that hill. And like you said, your responsibilities at home.
I think in that instance, the fact that he was able to experience something like that, that's again not something that everybody can. I've never had that kind of experience. And I guess maybe I'm kind of really glad when I hear him talk about it or the times that we have discussed it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it's an experience that you simply never forget. It's similar. I want to say it's similar to a traumatic. It is a traumatic experience. It could be an incident in war. It could be an incident in a car wreck. Those are things that you don't forget, and they stay with you all the time. And it's the same when you have a close encounter. And that was one of the problems with Lonnie Zamora. He never got over it. He lost his job. It devastated his life.
Right. And you and I and Diana, as investigators, know that when most people come forward with extraordinary reports, especially of close encounters, it's never fame, fortune, a book, a movie, or even radio shows. It really is. I need to report this. They're looking for professional people to tell them they're not crazy and that this stuff did happen. And, and it does change their life, and often not for the better. I, too, had a close encounter in one of those experiences where that fear was actually it already hit us, and it's every cell of your body. I mean, it's almost uncontrollable. You have no control over it. And then we saw something. So I understand that. It never leaves. It stays with you. And you're absolutely right. It's something as traumatic as any other thing out there.
Right.
Would you agree?
Most definitely.
And talking about the people that come forward that are needing help with that, it's like you said, it's the most important thing is not just that they're not going crazy, but I think the most important thing is that they're going to be okay, because it's that fear of the unknown. Am I going to be okay?
Exactly. And how do I get through this? It's like any other process, whether, it's, somebody who's been criminally attacked, or I think anytime something happens to you where you have lost control of the environment or what is going on, I think all these cases, and I agree, that's why the need for professional investigators with clear understanding of the bigger picture and not just a Geiger counter, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Most
Definitely.
Anytime you're doing a UFO
or paranormal, because the same thing.
Right.
We've had the people that have the negative paranormal type situation also, and you see it all the time on TV. We got to mark it with the Geiger counter. We got that. Did you get that? It's all very what I call
sterile.
Hollywood, not just sterile, but Hollywoodish.
Yeah.
Let's see how bad we can scare you. But you know what? If that was really in real life what you were experiencing, because having been on that side, that's not something you go looking for. Not in your right mind anyway. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, have you ever been involved with a non-human presence? And I am talking about, a demonic or something supernatural, but that could also be maybe the second part of the question could be an extraterrestrial presence. It's I've always been curious if that was a possibility, especially in like a UFO landing or something where a psychic or a medium's ability.
I have to be honest with you on when it comes to UFOs. Have I seen lights? To have the kind of experience that JR has with actually seeing the craft? I cannot say I've ever had that. The only thing that I can honestly say that I've had an experience where I knew it was otherworldly was it was before I was with JR, and I was in my home, and we were I was in bed. I was by myself in the house. My children were it was myself with my children. And all of a sudden, the TV in the bedroom at that time, it was about 2:00 in the morning, started doing like that poltergeist type thing with the lightning going through it, and it was off. And that's what woke me up. And I was like, okay, what's here? And then all of a sudden, through the bedroom window, this red light came into the room. And I understand the fear. I understand the ability not to move. You're so in trauma. And all I kept saying was, the children are here. And what I felt or what I sensed, what I saw in my mind's eye were the children in the room. And knowing that they weren't children though, but my mind wanting to make them children. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
And that was, and I have to be honest, I have not done too much with demonology. I don't look for that kind of negative energy. I really don't. And I trust my spirit guides not to allow it near me because it's not something that I want to be involved with. Have I met some darkly type energy? Yes, I have. And again, it's the same thing. It's that knowing that this is something that you don't want to tangle with, or you don't want to allow yourself to be too pulled into.
Right.
Yeah, she makes a good point there. I'm sure all of you out there have seen some of these ghost hunter movies on TV where they go in and they want to entice the spirits, like, come on in, come on, get some, come on. And you're looking at these people saying, do you really know what you're doing here? I think I can speak for Diane as well. We never go into a situation with that type of an attitude. We always go in, and with Diane, she'll say a prayer or a blessing. We'll put ourselves in a circle, in a white light, And we're there for more or less for a spiritual purpose, not to entice or make spirits angry or to come out. We're not after that type of showmanship.
We're not trying to be the Geiger counter readers up, you know?